Jan Willem is going to talk about quantifying ecosystem services using i3 case studies from the Netherlands. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stefania, and thank you for the invitation. I'm really happy to be here today in Zadar, together with so many professionals from all over Europe and the United States. But there's also another reason that I'm happy to be here, because I'm from the Netherlands, and actually in the Netherlands it has been raining since last October. So coming here with this beautiful weather is absolutely amazing. But at the same time, when it is already raining for months and it's a very wet period in our part of Europe, there are other parts where it's extremely dry and high temperatures. And yeah, like we already saw in other presentations, these extreme weather events that take place all over the world, especially in cities, we realize that trees are part of the answer, part of the solution. And in my presentation today, I want to highlight a tool named i3 that we use in our consulting company. I'm the CEO of a consulting company in the Netherlands. We have 25 consultants. And I want to show you how we use this tool in our day-to-day consulting work. And, oh, the other way. Yes, the other way around. That was a fast one. So after a short introduction, I want to share something about i3. A little bit of the background of i3, how it works, and I will give an example of a case study that we just finished in the Netherlands to show you how it works, and also what we learned from using a tool like i3 in our consulting work. So I would like to start with this case study. This case study is a municipality in the southern part of the Netherlands, the city of Zadar, and they ask us to do a so-called tree effect analysis. And I'm not sure if you are aware of this concept, but in the Netherlands it's quite common, and it's actually our main work in the consulting company to do analysis of the effect of, for example, a reconstruction of a road or a building process. So in this situation, and we're not going too much into details, but there's a road construction, and the city wants to know what is the effect of this reconstruction on the existing trees. And there are 118 trees in this project. So after we did this analysis, and again, I cannot go into the detail about this product, the tree effect analysis, too much, but the conclusion was only 75 trees can be retained. We have to remove 61 trees, and 10 of them are transplantable. One of the questions in this analysis is always, what is the balance at the end? So this has a negative balance. We are losing 51 trees. As an addition on this project, the municipality also wants to know what are the ecosystem services or the eco-benefits that are provided by all these trees. Can we quantify how many ecosystem services are lost by the removal of the trees? So in this case, 51 trees. And we calculated this by this i3 eco study. And here you can see the overall result. So we analyzed this 118 trees, and these figures show how much carbon is stored, how much avoided runoff of water, how much leaf area in square meters, etc. Large numbers, and I will come back to these numbers later in my presentation. Because first I want to go a little bit into the details of what is i3. I would love to see some hands. Who of you have worked with i3 already? So that's only maybe 10 hands. So I'm really happy that I can share something about the background, because i3 has been there already for many years. The first release of i3 was back in 2006 in the United States. i3 was developed by the USDA Forest Service, Davy, ISA, and with several other partners that are mentioned here. And the main reason i3 was developed was to provide a comprehensive analysis of urban forest, helping communities to understand the value of their tree resources, the eco-benefits of the trees. And it is a free software, peer-reviewed, open, And it can be downloaded by every one of us, and we can start using it tomorrow. Over the years, this software has been developed and improved, and it was in about 10 years ago when it was available for Europe. Before, it was mostly only used in the United States. But nowadays, as you can see on the map, it's used more or less all over the globe. And that makes it, in my opinion, also a powerful tool. What really helped using i3 in the Netherlands was that we started a cooperation with different consulting companies. And that brought this concept of using i3 to calculate ecosystem services in a fast way further. So these are 4 companies that shared a so-called platform i3 Netherlands, and we organized events where we shared our knowledge about i3, but we also started a large pilot project. And this pilot project is called The Benefits of Trees. And there were several municipalities involved in this pilot, but also universities and schools. And in 2015, we started the first pilot project. Later in 2017, the second, and the final report was in 2019. And it helped us a lot to bring i3 further in the Netherlands. So cooperation in this is, in my opinion, a key. And finally, we organized a large event, the 3rd European i3 conference, where experts from all over the world came together in Amsterdam and shared their experience about i3. Actually, right now, in Dundee, Scotland, the 4th European i3 conference takes place. And this was also in cooperation with Treeconomics and i3 USA. What are we actually doing when we're using i3? So there are 3 main components. The first one, with i3, we want to specify the structure of your tree population. And this is something which probably you can also do with your own tree management software. So it tells something about the number of trees, the species, which high classes, etc. So general tree information. And secondly, it tells something about the function, and that makes i3 unique. So when we talk about the function, we're talking about a couple of ecosystem services. And last, you can put a value on the tree. That's based on environmental prices. I will come back later to that last part, because that's something we don't use in Europe that much. So mainly structure and function. And when we talk about function, we have to realize that when we talk about ecosystem services, and this is data from CISIS, the Common International Classification of Ecosystem Services, we know that nature provides us over 100 ecosystem services. Out of them, about 20 are specific for trees, and with i3 we can only calculate 5. So that's something we have to keep in mind when we do the analysis. There's much more eco-benefits that trees provide us than i3 can calculate, but still I believe it's very helpful. And what are the ecosystem services that we can calculate? First of all, air pollution, carbon storage, so the total amount of carbon that is stored, the carbon sequestration, avoided runoff, and oxygen production. So these are the functions of the trees that we can calculate. And what do you need to collect to do an i3 analysis? So in general, you only need to use i3 the species and the DBH. That's the minimum required. And you can imagine if you have a large tree population, let's say 50 or 100,000 trees, then this could work. But when you go back to an individual tree, then you need more detailed information. And that information that i3 recommends to have is not only the species and the DBH, but also the total height, the crown height, the height of the crown base, the crown diameter, health and condition of the tree, which is of course important, the percentage crown missing, and last but not least, crown light exposure. So from how many positions there's light on the canopy. That can be maximum 5, north, south, east, west, and the top. and that influences the whole calculation of this model. So this is in a nutshell, really in a nutshell, how you can use iTree, and I think many tree owners who do have an inventory, they have quite some information already available to do an analysis. So in this situation, we're going back to our iTree Eco study, like I showed before, in the city of Sittard Geleen. And first we looked at the structure. And I'm just showing one of the parameters about the structure, in this case the stem diameter classes. So this tells us something about how this population is built up based on the stem diameter. So we can see that there are not many old trees, or large trees at least, in this population. But this is just basic structure information. And it gets interesting when we are looking at the function of these trees. So when we look at the function of the trees, we get the information of, in this case, the species. What we see on the left side is the total stored carbon per tree species, and on the right side the number. And we see already some interesting information. For example, when we look at the Tilia platyphilus, there's not that much carbon stored, but the number of trees is high. And for example, the first one, Tilia europea, or even the Platanus acifolia, there are probably not that many plane trees, but there's a lot of carbon stored in these trees. When we look at leaf area, which is, of course, very important when it comes to ecosystem services. Let's say this is the engine that keeps the ecosystem services running. We also see that the trees which are most existing are not probably the ones who have the largest amount of leaf area. So this gives us other information than only, for example, in a project, what is the condition, or the parameters that we usually use to use. So like I said before, we have to remove 51 trees in this project. 10 trees can be transplanted. So we did also an analysis, not only based on the number, so we could say 84.3% of the trees can be retained. But we also looked at when you have to remove trees, how much of the ecosystem services that we calculated will be removed, will be lost. And there are differences. For example, when you look at the carbon stored, we will lose 30% of the stored carbon in this project. But when it comes to the carbon sequestration, we will lose almost 41%. So this gives us totally different information to make decisions and recommendations in the project. As an addition to this project, we were asked, what if you plant new trees? Can you have a look in this project? Based on this design, how many new trees can be planted? And we calculated that we can plant 130 new trees, 23 trees from the second height, and 90 trees from the third height. And that's where the tree balance comes in. So we had 118 trees, we removed 51, and we were left with 67, but we planted 113 new trees. So we end up with 180, and yeah, this would be a great project, maybe. Huh? But that's how we used to look at projects. We have 62 more trees after this project is finished. But then we did an analysis, what is the effect of removing those trees and planting the new trees? And as you can see here, in the current situation, when we remove the 51 trees and we start planting, the effect of the new planted trees for leaf area immediately after planting is very small. It will take almost 20 years, the natural growth, including the new planted trees, to compensate the loss of the leaf area. And the same goes for canopy cover. So if we look at the canopy cover, it will also take, let's say, almost 20 years to compensate the loss of these trees, even though we planted 113 new trees. And this brings me by the lessons learned, not only from this project, but also from other projects. And the first thing is that I said it before, the value thing, that's something we really don't use. Because if we calculate the monetary value of the trees, it's so low that we always lose it in a project. People will say, okay, we pay a few €100 and the tree can be, remove the tree. So we stay away from the value. We just stick to quantify the total amount of ecosystem services. So that's one of the first lessons that we learned. And the second one is that we start counting in a different way. Are there politicians here in the audience? No one? Okay, so, but in a politician way, if you do the math, you will count here 2 trees, right? So if we remove 1 tree, we still have 1 tree left. We plant another 3 trees, and we were really happy because the result is +2. This is an amazing project, or let's put it on a scale of the 1 million tree projects like Fabio already mentioned. But this is a way that we often use, like we're counting the numbers. And I have to be honest, I do it sometimes as well. It was, I think, a couple of weeks ago. My wife is sitting over there, and I came home late at night, and I thought she didn't saw me, and I opened the door, and she said, "You had drunk too much." I said, No. I had only 1 glass, I said, only 1 glass. So what I'm trying to say is not about the number of glasses, it's about the volume, what was in the glass. And so we as arborists, I think, have to look at a different way and do the mathematics in a different way if we look at trees. So if we look at the same 2 trees, and this 1800 and 2200 are the cubic meters of canopy volume. So if we look at the trees in this way and remove 1 of them, we are losing 1,800 cubic meters. We can plant 3 trees, but when the calculation is done on the way I think we should calculate it, we are losing 1,500 cubic meters of canopy volume. And this is a totally different way of thinking. So what I'm trying to say is that we have to protect our large trees as much as possible because they are so important. And like I think it was Martin Thuzer last year, I heard him on a presentation saying we cannot plant ourselves out of the climate crisis. We have to plant a lot of trees. So in the Netherlands we developed, there is an institute, it's called the Norm Institute, and they introduced the Tree Balance 2.0. They said we're not counting number of trees, but we are calculating the canopy volume. And this is just an easy example of, in an existing project, we have 10 trees with a total amount of 16,600 cubic meter canopy volume. We are removing 3 trees here, so we are removing 3 large trees. It's a loss of 6,000 cubic meter. And we are planting 25 trees, and then the tree balance is at the end. Yes, we gained 22 trees, but we lost almost 35% of canopy volume. And in this approach, if you want to compensate it directly, we have to plant 600 young trees, and we all realize that's impossible in a project. But I realized that when we start this discussion, we have a different position around the table. In projects, and it's very helpful at least to convince people to change their plans and to protect all the trees better. I would like to summarize and to mention one new initiative which I really like. This is an initiative also from this Norm Institute in the Netherlands, and it's released a few weeks ago. I'm sure you all heard about the 330-300 rule of Cecil Konijnendijk. And Cecil, together with this institute and several experts in the Netherlands, they discussed how they can improve the 30 rule, the 30% canopy cover, into volume. So they did a calculation or a study, and they found out that this 30, which is in, let's say, square meters, if we want to develop it into a 3D model in 3 dimensions, we need an average of 2.2 cubic meter canopy volume per square meter. And that would be the norm for which is an equivalent to the 30%. And we all know that 30% gives us the most benefits, especially for health in the urban environment. So this Dutch national tree standard is just released, and I'm very curious how this will develop and how municipalities will put it in their policies. It's at least a different way to look at canopy volume. And of course, new technologies will be very helpful. I really loved when you said, Fabio, that one of the things we often forget is that we monitor. So we set our goals. Sometimes we even don't know where we are now. And we want to go. So I have to put it this way: in the planning circle, for example, if we want to increase our canopy volume by a certain percentage, it's important to know how much canopy volume do we have now, where we want to go, make plans how to get there, but also we need to know, are we reaching our destination? And in that monitor phase, I think we need more accurate data. This is an example of one of the sponsors of this event, Greehill. They're using LiDAR and artificial intelligence for very accurate measurement of, in this case, the tree height, the crown diameter, exactly the parameters that we need to calculate the tree volume, the canopy volume. So I think this kind of data will be helpful. Also to make this, there's a direct link with iTree. So to calculate ecosystem services immediately, no need to send it in an Excel file to iTree anymore. And this is the information that many policymakers and also tree managers, I think, need when it comes to managing their urban forest. Yeah, and last but not least, it will also give us the opportunity to repeat this. And if you repeat it, you can see the change and monitor the development of your trees over time. And that will give, at the end, you the answer if you're going in the right direction. So long story short, what I'm trying to show you is how we use iTree in our consulting work. And I have to say that for many years in projects, we didn't have the tools to show the importance of trees. And iTree is one of the tools. It's not a silver bullet, but it's very helpful for us to get, like I said, another position at the table and have another discussion with, for example, someone who's a project manager or for a construction, and prove with facts what trees are doing and what will be lost if you remove the trees. Thank you very much.